So at this point in your life, what still excites you about Necrophobic?
Yeah, because if I may brag, but we are a fantastic band still. We put out album after album after album without getting a worse band. We get better all the time, and and I'm happy about that. This band cannot continue forever, but we will continue as long as our bodies allows us to.
Greetings, Legion, and welcome to episode 216 of Into the Necrosphere. Last week we courted controversy. This week it's all about the music, as Necrophobic's drummer Joakim Sterner joins me to talk about their brand new record In the Twilight Grey, which will be released on Century Media Records within the next couple of weeks. We also spoke at length about his own journey as a musician. He reminisced about the Swedish blackened death metal underground. He shared some of his memories of working with John Notvite of Dissection, and much, much more. If you're a fan of Necrophobic, or frankly, whether you're not a fan, this is a fucking phenomenal conversation that you guys are thoroughly going to enjoy. But before we get down to business, it's time to cast into the spotlight another unsigned gem. Our journey this week takes us to the mean streets of Baltimore, Maryland, for a band called Intimidation display. They have got 2 albums out, including their new one, Unrelenting Punishment. You're going to get a taste of that right now. That was a band called Intimidation Display. The song is entitled Crushing Blow. The album is Unrelenting Punishment, a suitably named title for a record that will absolutely rip your face off. Great music, awesome band, love the album cover as well. And thank you very much to those guys for reaching out and sharing their music with me. My apologies in a public forum for taking so fucking long to get back in touch with you guys after you originally reached out. It was one of those things where I loved the name of the band and I had it flagged in my emails for weeks, months on end, thinking I need to reach out to these guys and tell them I like their music. But yeah, finally got around to it. Of course, if you're in a band and you're unsigned and you want to get your music heard by mine own ears, then send me a email on intothenecrosphere@gmail.com. Reach out to me on any of the socials. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and X. And if I like what I hear, eventually I will get around to playing it. You might not hear from me immediately. There's a lot of people that have sent me stuff so far that I need to work my way through. There's a couple of very exciting debuts and premieres we've got lined up as well for this segment of the show. But yeah, if I like what I hear, at some point you're going to get the rub. You're going to be able to bask in the glory of having been on the Into the Necrosphere unsigned spotlight. My friends, if you're new to the podcast and you like what you've heard so far, then do me a favor, hit the subscribe button on your platform of choice. Thank you so much to the Legion for helping me pass the 4,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. It's not quite PewDiePie numbers. I'm never expecting it to be, but it was pretty nice seeing us cross that threshold. So thank you very much for that. And of course, you can follow the show on the socials. You can check out the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store if you want to pick yourself out some a hoodie, a t-shirt, or whatever else catches your fancy. And you can rest safe in the knowledge that when you part ways with those hard-earned ducats, I'm going to be plowing all of that back straight into the show. Make sure that you follow my fellow horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. Every Monday, the inimitable Brandon Legion brings you another installment of Horrorwolf 666. Yours truly casts hexes and slays poses on Into the Necrosphere every Tuesday. Every Wednesday, Sensei Mike Hill delivers another installment of Everything Went Black. He returns on a Thursday with my favorite podcast of the week, Necromaniacs. He is joined by his co-hosts, Sheriff Mike Scondado and Professor Jeff Kashid. They review new and old horror movies. It is always a blast, super entertaining, must listen to podcasting material, podcasting goodness. Speaking of podcasting goodness, the sinister minister Carl Haikara takes you on a journey through the dark, the weird, the arcane, and esoteric every Thursday and every Sunday with his podcast Soul Knocks, and then waiting in the shadows, ready to pounce when you least expect it. Cheyenne of the band Trivax has the fantastic Iblis manifestations. He recently celebrated his 80th episode with a absolute doozy of a guest by way of Eric of Watain. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, make sure you do. Don't go anywhere when I'm done talking to Joakim either, because I'm going to be putting on your radar some of my favorite new releases. And of course, there is also the matter of the weekly news rant. And this week, we've got some sad news to talk about. We're also going to be listening to some music, sharing our thoughts, or I will share my thoughts, on the latest singles by the likes of Fleshgod Apocalypse. I'm also going to be listening to the new Burton C Bell single. All of those will be rounded up for judgment, and we'll find out whether or not they cut the mustard. Before we get to that, though, sit back, brace yourselves, because I am welcoming to Into the Necrosphere for the first time, hopefully not the last time, Joakim Sterner of Necrophobic. I think there's been this boiling undercurrent of wasp love on this podcast, like with people that come on invariably, like you start talking to folks about stuff that they listened to when they were young, and you know, for some reason, repeatedly, it's always come back to, hey, you know what's fucking brilliant and doesn't get enough love? The first 3 Wasp albums.
They've been on my record player since '84. So
yeah. So how's it going with you? You know, it's I was thinking about us doing this episode, I thought to myself, it's you guys have been around for, if my math is correct, 35 years now. Yes. Album 10 is about to be released at the time we're recording this in 8 days. Mm-hmm. How does it feel to you nowadays when you're putting out a record, or as at the cusp of putting out a record like in the Twilight Grey, versus how you felt in those early days, in the in the early 90s, when the band was young guns?
Yeah. Well, it's always a thrill when you have a new album coming out, because you put so much work in it. And like with any art, there's someone to judge, like our audience. Is it a good album or is it a bad album? So even though I say I don't care because it comes from us, we do what we want. There's still that nerve. How will this be received from the fans? So that thing is still around. Recording wise, it's not. Well, if I personally, I don't like being in the studio. Not nowadays, because we are never there as a band, because we want to be so efficient. But back in the days, the entire band was there, even though they were just listening to some rough guitar and me recording the drums. Is not the coolest sound you can hear, but the feeling of the band was more how I prefer. That's not happening today, because I'm in the studio myself and record the drums. Everyone else goes to the studio alone, but it's more efficient and more focused, which is good in a way also. But yeah.
I've had this conversation with a couple of folks over the last few months. The idea of bands not really rehearsing together anymore, not really being together as a band and writing music in the band room or in the studio. I've often wondered how big of an impact that has on the music that they're putting out, and whether some of that spontaneous feel that you had in the material from the 90s, that really kind of raw and that gruff, aggressive feel, whether maybe some of that was lost because of the fact that a lot of bands don't really operate as bands anymore. They're collaborating musicians. When they're on stage together, they're a band. But you know what I mean, because I'm pretty sure you'll have gone through that. But you're not spending 3-4 days a week in the band, in the rehearsal space together.
No, but we still rehearse together.
Yeah,
because all of us think that's important. Because everyone practicing by themselves at home doesn't mean that the band is a unit together if you don't rehearse and get the vibes from everyone else. So we still rehearse on a regular basis. If we have a lot of shows in a row, we don't. If we have a week or two off, we don't practice together or rehearsing together during those 2 weeks. But if it's a longer period, we take a small vacation from each other when we come back from shows. But then again, we start rehearsing, and we have a 1 day a week, Tuesdays. That's for rehearsing together.
For rehearsing and group devil worship.
Yeah, but then also we have this chat app, WhatsApp, that we talk every day there. And it's often serious and matters that's band related. But sometimes you you fool around and put up memes and stuff like that. But
Does your writing process still work in a similar way? Are you guys still writing a lot of your material in the studio or in the band room together, or how has that evolved over the course of the last 35 years?
Yes, when we were younger, we rehearsed like 3-4 times a week. And we were there much longer because we hadn't a life outside the rehearsal place. So there we also wrote much of the music. Some music, of course, came from fooling around at home, but nowadays it's pretty much like a full song that's already written and pre-recorded also. So we get it on we download it from so from internet where we have our stuff. And we listen, each and every one of us listen to the song, except the songwriter, because he obviously knows the song.
He knows it, yeah.
But the rest of us listens to it and try to learn it as quickly as possible. And if there's time before recording the song, we try it out in the rehearsal place.
Are you guys?
Sorry, but usually, whatever. If it wasn't clear enough, the music is not written in the rehearsal place anymore, like it was in the beginning. In
the old days.
Yeah.
When it comes to the studio, I mean, like you mentioned before that you don't really enjoy being there anymore because you're there by yourself. How fast of a worker do you tend to be? Are you kind of in and out? Is it a couple of weeks that you spend there? How efficient has being a veteran of the recording process made you?
For me, I spent 3 or 4 days. Not full working hours, but maybe from 10 till 3, 10 a.m., 3 p.m. With a lunch break for 1 hour. That's 3 or 4 days in the studio for me. So there's recording song after song after song after song. And no interaction with anything else than talking to the engineer.
The when I mentioned to a couple of folks that I was going to have you on the podcast, the thing that everyone was very keen to know more about when it came to you is really kind of your roots and your background and how you got into this. So let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up? Like what was your childhood like, and how did you discover heavy music, or how did you discover music in the first instance?
I think I come from a musical home. Not that my parents were musicians or anything, but music has always been playing in the stereo at home. In the very early years, I was a huge Elvis fan and ABBA fan. When I was around 10, some guy in school played punk rock music, Swedish punk rock, that I got into. Then when I was 12 years, I went to a summer camp, and one friend there played me Iron Maiden, and I was blown away directly. It was, what the fuck is this? This is the heaviest drums, the heaviest guitars I've ever heard. So when I came back from that summer camp, I immediately went to the record store to find that band Iron Maiden. And when I found the place with Iron Maiden, I discovered that they had 3 albums out. And which one was it that I heard on summer camp? But I luckily picked The Number of the Beast, which it was that I heard.
I was going to ask you, can you remember the first song that you... Or could you remember the song your friend played you?
Yeah, it was The Prisoner with that heavy drum intro. So that was... maybe he played Invaders, but my ears started to hear when those heavy drums... and it is the second song or third song, so... But from there on, I was a heavy metal guy, and started to search for new other bands. I went back to buy the other 2 Iron Maiden records as well. So, but then I started to discover and search for more of this music. So and then later on, I found other friends I bought an Iron Maiden T-shirt, and some other guy had a Motörhead T-shirt, and you're a hard rocker, okay? So let's talk, and yeah, that's how it started. Then I met David and Stefan, who I formed this band with, and we went to a lot of. Yeah, we went to record stores that had much more heavy metal music than the most common store had, and there we also found fanzines and demo tapes. So we found out about that there was an underground movement, and that caught our interest very much, and we started reading those and discovered more bands and ordering demos, and yeah. And then later on, we formed the band.
And you guys were officially formed in 1989. But I mean, you as you say, you knew each other for quite a while prior to that. What was it that inspired you to start the band? What made you guys decide you were going to give it a go?
Yeah, I think we heard Iron Maiden, and we had those albums. It was like, they are untouchables. They are our heroes. And then when we found out about the underground movement and started to go to those small shows with Nihilist and Dismember and Tiamat, but they were called Treblinka back then. They were just as us. And if they can do it, we can do it, because we had this, how should I say, burning ambition, or the drive to do something more than just listen.
Yeah.
So,
you mentioned being attracted to the drums on Iron Maiden when you first heard that. By that point, were you already playing the instrument?
No, not at that time. When it was music class in school, I think I was in the 7th or 8th grade. The music teacher invited us to fool around a bit with the instrument, and there was only me and one more guy focusing on the drums. And I eventually was a bit better than him. So when we have parents meetings or stuff like that, and the music teacher that was also our main teacher, he put me and David and him to do a Beatles song together. So but I think I was also wanted to be a guitarist or a lead vocalist, but I didn't have those skills as quickly as I had the drum skills. So
it's interesting to me though that your ear was immediately drawn to the drums though, and I mean I would also imagine at that time it didn't hurt to be a proficient drummer, because you can, with the greatest respect to vocalists and guitarists, a drummer, a proficient and a good drummer is far harder to come by. You were also you were playing drums at a time when there were a lot of new bands forming, which must have been also a very exciting time. I mean, I know you spoke about Dismember. They formed a year before you guys officially. Nihilist stroke Entombed were there. Marduk started a year after you guys. What were some of your memories of that early Swedish extreme scene? Because there was. Well, we've just spoken about death and black metal now, and you guys have always sort of had a combination of both in your DNA in any case. Yeah, what were some of your memories of what the scene was like at that time?
You had your favorites, and that for me was Dismember and Nihilist. When they had a show, I was there. Also a band called Morbid, which didn't last long because the vocalist went to Norway and joined Mayhem.
Joined that little known band called Mayhem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember it was, I don't know how it is nowadays actually, but it was more work back then to spread the name and stuff. So I think we helped each other out a bit more than maybe the new bands do today. Like, posting the when I sent if I got a demo order, you have to put many flyers in the envelope also to protect the tape and also to help spread someone else's flyers to promote them as well. So I think it was, if I remember correctly, I think it was more helpful towards other bands back then.
Yeah. So much more of a camaraderie, if you will.
I think so. I think so. And also, since we were so young, and this new style of metal was forming, and we were part of it, there was a lot of people just hanging around to talk about music that I don't do today. Actually, I talk to my band members and other friends, of course, but the topics were, have you heard this, and have you heard that sound, and have you heard that vocalist before, and stuff like that.
Yeah. What were the bands, or what were the albums that kind of took you down that more extreme path, and that were the inspiration for you to pick up the drums and to actually think of doing this as a starting your own band? You mean, I don't know, probably a follow-up question, but to actually do it as a vocation is something that you can potentially make a living out of.
Yes, there was one record store in Stockholm that had a lot more albums than the regular stores. So you I don't know how what the word is when you browsing all the records in the store, and you saw the most weird looking album covers, and some caught your interest, and you kindly asked if it was possible to listen to this album. Yeah, if you're gonna buy it. But I was a regular there, so I got to listen to a few without buying them. But also, and that was bands like Metal Church and Slayer and those kind of bands. My one of the friends that I formed the band with, Stefan, he came from a smaller town, and he showed me Metallica, which I couldn't understand the first listen. Next day in school, I said to him, I was having a riff in my head, and I said, what was that? There was the Metallica song you heard yesterday. And then I came back to him the next day, and I instantly, from there on, liked Metallica. And then there was, we didn't have many TV channels in Sweden in these days. So Stefan, again, he had cable TV pretty early for being here in Sweden. And there was a show from Sky, the cable network was called Sky Channel. And they had a metal show. I don't know. I remember if it was 1 or 2 hours long, but then you saw bands that you haven't seen before, like Slayer. They were always popping up. I saw the covers in the record store, and now I saw them on this cable station. And it was, more aggressive than Iron Maiden and music like that. But I felt that this music is something that I am attracted to. And once you pass Slayer and Metallica, you can go even further, and then all of a sudden there was this band Death, and also with this fanzine stuff that you read, and you heard about Death pretty early, and Possessed, and those kind of bands. So there was already rumors about them before they did the records. So. And that caught my interest, the logos and the names and the artwork. So yeah, I went, more aggressive, more darker in my music taste, and I don't remember exactly if that was what the question was about.
No, that kind of covers it. But I mean, it's interesting when you talk about that. I think about the buzz and the excitement that they used to build around certain releases or around certain bands. And one very famous story, which I've spoken about on the podcast before, is the first Sepultura show when they were supporting Sodom in the UK, and you had people that were queuing for, I believe it was about half a mile, maybe even longer, down the block just to get in to see them play their support slot through no magazines, certainly no radio or anything like that. I mean, there weren't podcasts, there wasn't the internet. It was just all through word of mouth. And it's crazy to me how, even though the communication tools have improved exponentially, I mean, we've got Facebook accounts now and Instagram and whatnot, it's actually quite rare to have an event happen in metal, whether it's a record, whether it's a new band coming out, whether it's a band that's about to go on tour, that has that degree of energy behind it, like that real sort of, fanatical energy that you would see, certainly, especially when you guys were getting started. I mean, frequently actually in the underground.
Yeah, but like you said, Sepultura, when they supported Sodom, it was on their third album, I guess.
Yeah, it was for Beneath the Remains, I believe, because it was 1989.
So already then they had built a huge name in the underground, because they were also from a different part of the world that was not expected that metal comes from, and it was so good. And I had, before Beneath the Remains, I had already bought Schizophrenia and Morbid Visions. And that tour also came, that was one of the first, because everyone that toured these kind of bands, they never came to Sweden because it was so expensive to take the ferry from Denmark over to Sweden, and then also up to Stockholm. So it was quite expensive, but they came on that tour with Sodom, but not to Stockholm, to a small town called Fagersta, because there was an organizer there that started to bring these bands. He brought then Dark Angel, he brought Death, he brought more of these kind of bands, and later on those tours came to Stockholm when it was Anthrax and Nuclear Assault and those kind of bands. They started to tour in Sweden also. So, but I remember also when we were in Fagersta watching Sodom and Sepultura, I didn't see so much of Sodom because Sepultura guys was just hanging outside the venue, and they were not stars or anything, but you spend a lot of time talking to them, and they had an interview on MTV just a couple of weeks earlier, so there was also this to talk about with them. How did it feel to be interviewed for MTV, and stuff like that. So, and they were very friendly, and it was also very early in their career, and they had just broke big or something with that.
Well, plus, I mean, one, it helped that they were touring off the back of a very, very well received record, but also by all accounts, everything. As I said, sadly, I didn't see it myself, but because I was only 9 years old at the time. But by all accounts, those shows they played in 1989 were truly the stuff of legend. You mentioning it that you mentioned that you saw it. What were your memories of that show? What was it like?
I cannot remember. I
imagine many people being carried out of the show, and couple of broken noses, few bruises along the way.
Very very sore neck. I was probably way in front of the stage and just headbanging throughout the whole set. It was some kind of ecstasy. I don't know if that is the word, but you were so into it, and you just headbang throughout the whole show.
Can you remember the first show that Necrophobic played?
Yes.
When did this take place?
It's on YouTube. I put it out last year or 2 years ago. It's in Tumba. Tumba is a suburb to Stockholm. You take the commuter train like half an hour south. We played 6 songs. The sound was terrible, but it was fun.
What did the crowd respond like?
Not as huge crowd as maybe Nihilist and Dismember had, but it was pretty much how all these shows looked like, stage diving and headbanging, and I don't know what there's words for everything nowadays. Throwing people around, and I don't know.
That has passed me by as well, so don't worry about that. When you talk me through some of your memories of recording the Nocturnal Silence, because I remember that album cover so clearly. That when I first was getting into extreme music, the way we did it in South Africa, which is where I grew up, is we would get the Nuclear Blast catalog, and you would page through the Nuclear Blast catalog and try and decipher the German and figure out what band is cool. And normally you would go, there were certain ways they might describe something that I would know that this is going to be something that's up my street. They would sometimes have, and you'll remember this from the 90s, like nowadays when you tell the kids this, they look at you like you're strange. But I remember they would be like, German writing, and then all of a sudden you'd see like Total War, like several exclamations, or like there's another one I remember specifically on like Osmos Productions did an ad in the catalog, and it had this big banner that said "Not for pussies." But I so distinctly remember the album cover for the Nocturnal Silence, because it was quite different to anything else that was coming out at the time. And it was so stark and so in your face. And then obviously when I heard the band, it was like these guys are not fucking around. You know that from as soon as you hear the Nocturnal Silence, that's the first thing that sort of hits you, is like, this is like, especially at that time, it was like, fuck, this is the next step up.
It's a very eye-catching album cover, like you said, and it sort of didn't look exactly like everything else. Dan Seagrave was a very popular, and still is very popular, artist. So Entombed had it, Dismember, Morbid Angel, and we had a friend that airbrushed, and he did that cover, and it was it glows really. But the recording sessions, it was, we weren't so studio experienced. This was maybe the 3rd or 4th time we were in the studio, so you were a bit familiar with how it works, but you also were a bit thrilled because this is going to be an album. it's very special. But what can I say? That every day one member had a task to cook lunch. That was one thing that we had like scheduled. And then also when it was Fridays, friends starting to come into the studio with with bottles of beer and bottles of wine and stuff like that. And Thomas, he was not happy about it. He said that we had the record of guests. This was when Studio Sunlight was the small studio, and we had like 21, 23 friends there, with only 2 or 3 that actually was going to record guest vocals for one of the songs. But it turned up 21, 23 people on a Friday, and we were going out afterwards. So Thomas didn't like that, but it was a fun memory.
With you growing up in South Africa and viewing all of this that was happening at that time from a distance, there was, when it came to Sweden, Stockholm and Gothenburg were almost mythical because of how many bands it was spawning that we were getting into, and particularly also Sunlight Studios and the Abyss Studios, and then also as part of the Norwegian black metal scene, Grieghallen. Those were like you thought of them as these incredibly magical places, and like how does it happen that bands just go in there and out comes an incredible record, but. You guys stuck with recording at Sunlight Studio for quite some time. How many records did you do there in total?
4, I think we did there. 4 albums. We were actually going to record the second album in another studio because after Nocturnal Silence, Sunlight became so popular, even bands from abroad came there to record. And so it was difficult to get studio time there as well. So we found a studio and recorded two songs there, 2 new songs. And the result was really good. So we said that this is the studio we should do the next album in. When that time came, that studio wasn't around anymore. So you have to do the safeguard again to book Sunlight. But we did 4 albums in Sunlight. I think we always managed to get a more sound of our own rather than asking Thomas, can you make us sound like Entombed?
That's also to me, and apologies for the interruption, but when I in the run up to us speaking, I went and I listened to every single Necrophobic album again, and what struck me about Nocturnal Silence is it was a Sunlight Studios record, but it doesn't sound like one. It doesn't sound like Dismember or Entombed. It doesn't have that very distinct, like Sunlight Studios in the main, you can hear for band records recorded there, almost like with Abyss. With Abyss, especially the records that Peter did in the 90s, you can absolutely hear they were recorded at Abyss. But you guys kind of had your own unique thing going on the Nocturnal Silence, which again I very much appreciated at the time and do now as well.
Yeah, I think also one thing that made us sound a bit different was also that we didn't tune down our guitars as much as everyone else did. I'm not a guitarist, but I think we play in a different tuning than Entombed. So that, of course, has the sound that comes out is, of course, a bit different already there. But then we also what's word? We said to Thomas that we are searching for a different sound than the regular Sunlight sound. And after a while, you also get more experience when being in the studio. So the more you were in the studios, the more times you were in the studios, the more experience you got, and could make your own decisions in the studio, not asking Thomas to search for a sound that we liked. But after those 4 albums, I guess also Thomas moved from Stockholm, but that was not the only reason, because we decided that now was the last time we recorded in sunlight. We have to find something else. And we started to think about how could we were also thinking going to Abyss or going to Gothenburg to get a different sound that we already had got in sunlight. So, but then someone said we can record it ourselves if we find the right guys to work with, because then at that time the computers started to come and digital recordings started to happen. So when we did Rimtursum, the 2006 album, we recorded at a friend's house in his basement, and we worked with Fredrik Folkere, Unleashed guitar player, for the first time. He was the most advanced self-taught producer we could find. But it was it turned out really good, so we continued recording like that, and still do, and we still record with Fredrik Folkere also. So
what is it about that relationship that works, or about that dynamic that has taken you to, I mean, if my math is correct, it's another 6 records from those first 4 that you recorded at Sunlight Studios?
Yeah, Fredrik is a very down-to-earth guy, which also makes, like I was talking about earlier in this interview, it's very easy to get focused around him, to do, not that he is likes to talk all the time. It's not like that, but there's a feeling and an atmosphere that this is about making a recording now, and not drink coffee and talk shit, which is good. But and the more you record with him, that's also progression. It's easier and easier every time with him. So, and I think we also, on that album, we actually, for the first time, this is my personal thoughts, but I think Rimtursum was the first album that actually sounded the way we were thinking of. That's how we want to sound when we started the band. The 4 first albums was developing and being more experienced, but we, on that album, we actually found how we wanted to sound.
That must be like there must be a sense of relief that comes with that, because did you feel like you were chasing something with those earlier records? Like, if you went back when, Dark Side was completed, for example, if you listened back to it, did you feel like something was missing at the time, or is it more in hindsight that becomes apparent, if you understand what I mean?
Yeah, but we are a death black metal band. Sometimes the material is more black, sometimes the material is more death, but there's always a combination. And sometimes I think an album can sound more death metal than black metal on our 4 first albums. But for the first time, Rimtursum sounds blackened death metal, that I called this band, described this band since 91 or something. And I don't know if it was the sound or if it was the songs, but the combination was like, here we have our recipe or something for how this band shall sound.
Yeah, you've hit your rhythm. You hit your stride. Yeah.
Yeah.
One legend that you guys worked with, and I had to ask you about him. John Otveit was a guest on Dark Side, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, you guys had a working relationship with him, and knew him for up until the time that he passed away. What was your memories of him? What was he like to work with, particularly in those early days?
Yeah, I wasn't really close friends with Jon, but we know of each other since the beginning because he had a fanzine and he had his band, and we traded. I think I bought his fanzine, or maybe he interviewed me for his fanzine, but we traded demos and kept contact throughout the years. And since we had guests on our first album, someone in the band asked if this was going to be a tradition when we recorded Dark Side, the second album. And I thought that, yeah, it's a great idea actually. But who should we invite to the studio? And then one day I said that I dreamt that Jon was the guy who came to the studio. I dreamt him being in the studio with us and singing Nailing the Holy One. Yeah, and you seem to know him the best out of us in the band, so can you give him a call and ask? And like I said, I was not close friends with him because he lived in another town also. So, but I called him and I said, Jon, I dreamt about you. That you were going to, and I explained that we had guest musicians on the first album, and now we wanted him to come to the studio and sing a duet with Tobias, that was the vocalist back then. So split vocals, and he thought it was a great idea and he wanted to do it. He asked me if I could send down the tape with the song and the lyrics. I don't know for how long he practiced it. Maybe a month or so, and then he came to the studio. He was really professional. We recorded his vocals in no time at all, and then I guess we just ended with a party that evening, and then he went back to Gothenburg again. But it was a great feeling to have him in the studio, and yeah. His band was also one great Swedish band. So and the name, but yeah, then he drifted into doing stuff that I didn't support. So
yeah. I was about to say, did you connect with him again after he came out of prison?
Yeah, he did the first show in Stockholm after he came out of prison, and I went backstage to talk to him a little bit and ask how he was feeling and if he remembered me and how he was feeling about the show and stuff like that. And yeah, it was a great show. But after that, I didn't see or talk to him anymore. And yeah, I went to that. His last concert, which he played on a sacred ground here in Stockholm. It's an arena called Johanneshovs Isstadion, where all the metal bands came there in the 80s, like Kiss and Iron Maiden, Twisted Sister, and yeah, Dio and those bands.
Mm-hmm. He always, I mean, again, obviously I've never met him. Whatever I've seen of him is on interviews and stuff like that, but he always struck me as a unbelievably intense cat. Like, there's some guys that just have that intense energy around them. I've met, you'll no doubt have come across a couple of folks like that, but there's a couple of people where when you shake their hands, there's like I wouldn't say a darkness. It's just a very intense like
Yeah,
energy coming from them.
I know what you're talking about.
Like they staring through your skull when they meet you the first time. I definitely got those vibes from him. And the thing that I picked up from those interviews is, some people try and they put on an act and they pretend to be that way. And you can see through that pretty quickly. And with him, it felt very authentic. There's no fucking around there. There's no act. There's no nothing. Like the way he presented himself was the way that he is.
Yeah, but I want to add to that also. I want to add that he was much younger. This is many years ago. I don't know if you talk to him today, if he would still, if it was an act, he would not use it, I think, in today. But that was just a thought, because I was also much different when I was 30 to 20 years. But yeah.
So here's a question for you. In what ways would you say you were different? If you reflect back on what you were like as a young
but you were more angry and you were more. Music was my life. It still is, but I have other things also in my life now. But you, the thing is that you were young and you were part of something new, and you had strong beliefs and stuff like that. So again, I didn't mean that Jon put on an act.
No. I know exactly what you mean. I was curious actually, just because it's a theme that's come up quite a bit recently, probably because of the fact that I'm getting on in years too. But I do reflect on being a 15-year-old, and being into Dissection and being into Emperor and bands like that. And I mean, it's crazy the degree to which those bands in so many ways almost governed your identity. Like you identified so intensely with the music and with the scene that was inextricably a part of who you were. Like if people said my name, there was almost the expectation, probably subconsciously with me, is like, you need to be seeing the album cover for In the Nightside Eclipse, otherwise something is wrong. But yeah, and you do, as you say, you do mellow out over the years, because I have a daughter now. You have a job. Life happens. Part of me still likes to retain, I think, some of that feeling that I had when I was a young man, and that's why it's great when I hear a new album that I love, or doing the podcast. I get to speak to people whose music I've listened to for a long time. But when you're young, it's serious business. So, like there's no joking around about it whatsoever.
Yeah, I totally agree, and like I said, I still do this music, and it's still, I don't feel like it's a job. It's a privilege that I am able to do it still. But I have dropped a bit of. I'm more calm now, and more confident, and don't have to prove myself to anyone else anymore, because I am what I am. I have done what I have done. Stuff like that.
That concept of having to prove yourself to people. I mean, again, you guys were coming up at a time when, I mean, the legends of legends were putting out their albums. Like there was a thing I saw post the other day where they were saying, how I think it was 1993 or 1990. I think it's 1994 actually. You had, in the space of a couple of weeks, you had Transylvanian Hunger, In the Nightside Eclipse, you had De Mysteries Dom Satanas, you had the whole thing happening in Norway, and at the same time you had all this incredible music coming out of Sweden. Did that create a degree of competition? Like, was it a spoken thing that bands were very competitive with each other, or was that more you internalizing that competition and going, I need to be able to hang with my peers in the scene?
Well, I remember that the Norwegian bands, they put Swedish bands on their death lists. That was the thing. they threatened they threatened the Swedish artists and said that they were life metal and stuff like that. I don't know what the meaning behind it was really, but maybe it was promotion only. But but I was not part of burning churches and stuff like that.
No.
But I thought it was funny, and I was a bit, what's the word? Impressed.
Yeah.
That someone actually did that. But I also, at the same time, they were, everything turned from Sweden to Norway all of a sudden. The focus shifted. So, and I was also young. So if in interviews, if Norwegian music, or if it was a topic, I would say that no one knows really what their music is about. They know about what they have done, who's in jail, and what headlines they have created. It's not related to the music. It's what they have done outside the music business. But stuff like that. But of course, I adore the first Mayhem album. So there's nothing wrong with Norwegian music, but back then, at that time, I may have, in some interviews, been a bit
spoken your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever meet a musician, at that time or at any point in your career that you felt genuinely intimidated by, intimidated by their technical proficiency, just their ability as a musician? Like, did you meet somebody that you went, Jesus, this person is operating on levels that feel unattainable to me?
Not like that. I was more of a party guy back then. So if I liked someone, it was a guy that was fun to hang around with, have parties with and stuff like that. Not that he was Yngwie Malmsteen on guitar or Dave Lombardo on drums. That didn't matter to me. If it was a fun guy to party with, that caught my interest.
So, over the years with Necrophobic having been through so many different ups and downs and changes in lineup and things like that, and being around for as long as you guys have been around, what has been? I mean, you are the longest serving member in the band. You're the sole founding member of the band. What has kept you? What's kept you doing it for as long as you've been doing it for? What's at the root of your passion and your drive for Necrophobic in 2024?
Sebastian said that I was stubborn. That was why we're still around. No, but I don't know actually, and it's a bit scary. I said it in other interviews when they remind me that Necrophobic is 35 years old. I'm only 20, so how could that be possible? I didn't, of course, expect back in the late 80s or early 90s that Necrophobic would be around 2024 and make albums and play shows in every corner of the world. But I forgot the question. But let me simplify the question. What excites you about Necrophobic you're what, 52 years old now? Yeah, I'm
20 technically, but
I'm turning 54 later this year. So
at this point in your life, what still excites you about Necrophobic?
Yeah, because if I may brag, but we are a fantastic band still. We put out album after album after album without getting a worse band. We get better all the time, and and I'm happy about that. This band cannot continue forever, but we will continue as long as our bodies allows us to, and as long as people buys our albums and comes to our shows, and they do still. We seem to get bigger and bigger all the time. And that gives energy, and I personally think that we are a great band still. Like I said, we have, in my personal music taste, we haven't put out an album that is bad. So that's maybe why we're still around, because we can be around without making a fool out of yourself.
Yeah, without denigrating the legacy. And it's been something that I've found incredibly fascinating over the course of the last 4 years that I've been doing this podcast, is observing people that have been doing this for a lengthy period of time and separating the ones who are still making music and performing at a very high level to bands that genuinely are just phoning it in. And I don't think I've yet completely unlocked the mystery of why certain bands can still do it as well as they can do it, and others can't. I refuse to believe that at some point your creativity just dries up. I don't see that as being an option. The one theory that I had, that I've offered on many occasions, is that maybe it's people that are still genuinely into music, like they still love music as an art form, and they still listen to new music and they get excited by new music. I based that on my experience of meeting Shane Embury, Greg McIntosh from Paradise Lost, same thing. And again, if I think about bands that are making, in the metal scene, that are still, big bands that have a legacy, that are still doing great work, to me, Napalm Death is incredible. Paradise Lost is amazing. Testament still makes fucking ripping music.
Yeah.
Personally, I think Testament, of every single one of the thrash bands from the 80s, including Metallica and everybody else, they mop the floor with them in my opinion.
They do.
But as I said, it's intriguing to me to understand what it is that makes one artist sound like they're on autopilot and the other artists sound like they're genuinely inspired. And to your credit, I'll absolutely give you this. In the Twilight Grey sounds like a genuinely inspired record.
Yeah, it is. It's yet another good album. And when I first heard the pre-production demo, I wasn't even aware that a new album was on its way. So Sebastian, the main songwriter, he dropped a bomb. Wow, is it that time now?
Yeah,
a new album. I didn't even know you had written so many songs. But you said something about interested in still listening to music, and I forgot to mention a word, passion. This is passion for us. It's what we really want to do, and since we seem to do it great still, there's no ending until our bodies say stop.
Do you feel physically that it's catching up to you?
Yes, I'm a bit more tired of the shows now, but I also want to add, we have never been this very much touring band. We haven't, I don't know the English word, but spending month after month on the road with the same guys, you get angry of each other. And we have never toured so much. We maybe have done 4 European tours. We have never toured in USA. So I think we are not tired of each other, like maybe and we don't have this as our full-time job either. So maybe that's also a key to why we are still happy with each other and still wants to continue, because we have not gotten tired of each other yet.
You still love being in each other's company.
Yeah.
Well, sir, thank you so much for your time. I think it's such a great way to wrap up the conversation. I really appreciate the conversation with you, and looking forward to people hearing what the new record sounds like. I think if you're a Necrophobic fan, you got to be in your element during this. I think it's absolutely superb.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was nice to be on the show.
Yeah, well, it was nice having you. So we'll do it again at some point soon. I'm actually going to be visiting Stockholm in a couple of weeks' time for work. So I'm very much looking forward to that. First trip ever to Stockholm, which again is going to be surreal to me, because I'm not, I'm going for work, but the 13, 14-year-old me is going, is this where, Gates played this show? Is this where Marduk did this?
There's a lot of history for you here to find out. And hopefully you get that you come to Stockholm when it's spring. Yeah, because winter have been trying to come back the third time, but spring seemed to be a bit more strong. So the sun is actually coming out more and more now, and it's a nice city when it's the sun is shining, and there's a lot of water here, and so I hope you will enjoy your stay in Stockholm.
I'm sure I will. Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay.
Take care, brother.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
A big thank you to Joakim Sterner of the band Necrophobic. My guest this week, what an incredibly nice guy. And he was not kidding, my friends. Necrophobic continued to go from strength to strength. The upcoming album is called In the Twilight Grey. It gets released this coming Friday, March 15th. You just heard a track called Grace of the Past. It is absolutely sensational. Like I said, hopefully not the last time he's going to be on the podcast. I know that he's been a guest that a lot of you have wanted to hear me talk to for a while, so I trust that our conversation did not disappoint. Right now, before we get to the news rant, I wanted to flag to you guys a couple of releases that really ought to be on your radar. We're going to start with Fragments of the Ageless by Skeletal Remains. I had Chris Monroy and Mike De La O of Skeletal Remains on the podcast not too long ago. They were very excited about the new material, and rightfully so. So the new record, as I said, is called Fragments of the Ageless. It is out now on Century Media Records. It is their 5th album, and it is by far their best. If you are into or excited by the idea of old school thrash-infused death metal riffing that kind of gives a nod to the Florida god, the Floridian god of old school death metal, whilst being indebted to the European masters at the same time. I think these guys absolutely have it nailed. The production on this record is superb. The technicality is fucking fantastic without overshadowing any of the actual songs. And I'd said it to him when he was on the show. I think Chris Monroy is one of the best death metal vocalists going at the moment. So great to hear these guys put out a record like this. I personally felt when they were on the show, they undersold themselves, which is why I wanted to make sure that you all know you have to check this out if you're a death metal fan. This is one of the best death metal albums of the releases of the year so far. Next up, I wanted to talk about a band out of Italy called Keres. A couple of members of the Legion dropped me a note and said, you need to hear this. The album is called Homo Homini Lupus, and it is out right now on Gruesome Records. So as you heard there, rather pissed off music. I have been looking for a spiritual successor to the band Outer, who I've bemoaned a lack of material from them for a long time now. Their record Hollow Earth, which they put out back in 2018, is still, in my opinion, one of the best examples of top-tier blackened death metal. And when I listen to this Keres record, I hear shades, hints of that album. Certainly in terms of the aggression, in terms of just the ferocity, the urgency by which they play. There is more than a hint of the brilliance of that Outer record found on this record. I mean, no connection between the two bands other than, the connection in my own mind. These 5 guys stand on their own merits, but honestly, I cannot believe that this is their debut record. And I don't know, Gruesome Records is they've been around, they're an established label, but they're not a particularly big label. I would have thought that somebody like a Deborah Morty would have picked these guys up. Sadly, they didn't. Because they didn't, I think this record has the danger of flying under the radar a little bit. I wouldn't have picked up on it had members of the Legion not waved it under my nose. It was officially released on February the 23rd, but you can take my word for it. This is not one to sleep on. It is 33 minutes of absolute brilliance from start to finish. My favorite record of the week, though, by far, is the self-titled debut by Permafog out of Australia. Permafog features the guitar stylings of one Jason Pepiat, otherwise known as the vocalist for Psychroptic. Jason, of course, is a friend of the show. He is an absolutely stand-up dude. He has got apparently a project of some sort in the offing as well. So I don't know what sort of creative elixir they're giving the guys over in Australia, but they just seem to be releasing one absolutely sensational record after the other. Whether they try their hands at death metal, black metal, whatever the case may be, they just don't seem to be able to miss. This album is no exception. You have all of the brilliance of a band like Nadinger. As a matter of fact, Nadinger is a band that frequently comes to mind when I listen to this record, not just by virtue of the second wave inspired riffing, but actually the vocals sound quite similar. The riffing is catchy. It is, every single song on the album is memorable. It is just from start to finish a fucking classic in the making. And best of all, as much as it has that kind of Norwegian black metal feel to it, it's still executed in that way that makes so many Australian records so compelling. I've described it as being just slightly off axis, off kilter, and I think the Permafog guys have nailed it here. It's a challenging, compelling, interesting listen. I highly recommend it, and you're about to hear a song off of it right now. That was a song called Bone Corruption off the album Permafog by the band of the same name, released independently and featuring the great Jason Pepiat of Psychroptic on guitars. Absolutely phenomenal record, top notch in every sense of the word. I don't believe that they've even put this up on Bandcamp just yet. I know there's going to be a limited run of CDs coming out in May, but it is available right now on Spotify, so go check it out. In my view, one of the best black metal releases of the year so far. It is absolutely fucking brilliant. Right now, my friends, if you went on X or any form of social media and simped for Greta Gerwig to win an Oscar for the absolutely atrocious pile of shit that was the Barbie movie, then it's time to hit the bricks, because this is my weekly news rant.
A roundabout for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
So before I get started on this week's news rant, I wanted to take a few minutes just to talk about Blake Harrison of Pig Destroyer. Some of you will know that he was on episode 78 of the show, and the very dedicated amongst you will know that that was at a time when I had to work an awful lot harder to get certain guests on the show than I do now. And part of the reason why I'm in the position that I am now is because I had a couple of folks from bigger name projects and a couple of folks from the industry that believed in what I was trying to do and supported me. And I've expressed my gratitude for those folks on many, many occasions. In the run-up to episode 100, you could pick out a couple of names. I'd certainly, say Ghoul from Mayhem was, one very important co-sign. Alex from the Ruins of Beverast was another, and Blake Harrison was another. Pig Destroyer was was and still is a high-profile band. When I had Blake on the podcast, he was still in Pig Destroyer. And when I reached out to him originally, I really did so expecting him not to respond, but he did come back to me inside of a few hours. And as anybody who's seen the episode that we did will be able to tell you, hopefully you guys have all seen it, but if you saw the episode, you'll have seen that he was a really cordial, really friendly, really open and inviting guest. And he was just a hell of a great dude. You just got that impression of him really from the get-go. If I look at the comments and the tributes that have poured in since the news of him passing away broke, I think my impression of him as somebody who gave an awful lot to the scene and to people generally without expecting very much back in return, I think was very accurate. And for me, that really gives you the measure of the man. I know he leaves behind friends, family who are heartbroken by his passing, and I really want to extend my condolences to all of them. I'm grateful for the fact that I had the opportunity to speak to him on the podcast, and I think that if you see how beloved he was, and the fact that there's just nobody that could possibly say a bad thing about him, to me, as much as it's incredibly tragic that his life ended so soon, it also is testimony to a life well lived. So I raise my proverbial glass to Blake Harrison and to the memory of Blake Harrison. And again, my heart, my condolences go out to all of his family, his friends, his loved ones, particularly his partner, who posted an incredibly moving tribute to him on her social media over the weekend. And of course, we will end the show with the only band we could possibly play in the face of news like this, and that is Pig Destroyer. Okay. Let's move on now to some music news. The first headline grabbing my attention is that 6 Feet Under have announced a new album. It says here, American death metal veterans 6 Feet Under are back with a new album announcement dubbed Killing for Revenge. It will be set free on May the 10th, 2024 via Metal Blade Records. First single coming out soon. They've got the track list here. Obviously no music. The album cover looks reasonably shit. But I was thinking when I read the news the other day, how fucking crazy would it be? And I don't think it's going to happen, by the way, but how crazy would it be if this new 6 Feet Under album turns out to be something on a par with Haunted, Maximum Violence? Like, it's just vintage, badass 6 Feet Under. I mean, there is a part of me that, as much as I've had my issues with Chris Barnes and some of the ridiculous things that he said about the death metal scene, I'm still rooting for the dude to come to drop something that just blows people's minds. The way that my mind was blown when I heard Haunted for the first time. Or frankly, I mean, Tomb of the Mutilated or Butchered at Birth. But that to me that's less of a Chris Barnes vehicle. I always see that as more Cannibal Corpse. And yes, he was part of it, and he's a very important part. But when I think of Chris Barnes, the first thing I think of is Maximum Violence, and I think of Haunted. I think of Lycanthropy. So if they can pull off another Lycanthropy, a song that has the impact and the timelessness of Lycanthropy on Killing for Revenge, that would be something pretty goddamn sweet. Will it happen, though? That is something that I not only doubt, I'd probably be willing to bet against them, but I hope the cynic in me is proven wrong. Next up, we've got a new single by the band Oberst. It says here to promote their forthcoming studio release, Toil. Norway's Oberst offer in listening another new track in preview called Bad Run. The new outing drops on April the 26th through Indie Recordings. I think it's about time we listen to some music, so let's give this a spin. I don't think there's any point trying to beat about the bush here. This sounds to me like music for grown men who still wet the bed. This is the kind of band that you'll go to the Camden Underworld to go see, some hardcore band or, some, heavy-ish band play. And these guys are going to be opening and you're going to be going, fuck, I need to get to the bar as quickly as possible. And there's going to be on the floor probably like 2-3 of the band's friends or their family, and they're going to be going nuts, like this is the best thing on the face of the earth, and everybody else is just going to be completely and utterly indifferent. Maybe someone likes this shit, I don't. And I'm surprised to even hear it on Metal Storm. I don't know whether or not it's they're on there just by virtue of the fact that they're from Norway, but they bring shame to their nation's legacy, quite frankly. Speaking of a band who absolutely do not bring shame to the Norwegian legacy, black metal entity Cold are premiering Galgeberg og Ritterbakke, the third and final single from their upcoming new studio album, Du Dommes Del Dot, which comes out on March the 22nd. I didn't even realize that they were putting out something again so soon. I know they're going to be at Inferno, so looking forward to seeing them there. I liked the previous Cold record very much, so let's hear what this track sounds like.
Fresh
This is very chilled out black metal. This is black metal that you could listen to with somebody who's not into the scene, and they're probably not going to hate you for it. I liked Swartzen, the record that they put out back in 2022, and it's crazy to think, for whatever reason, I thought that record was much more recent than 2022, but as I was kind of racking my mind listening to the song, I realized, shit, actually, I know for sure it didn't come out last year, because it was never on the short list or the list of contenders for the top 30 of 2023. But as I said, I like that record very much, and I feel like this kind of just carries on where that one left off. No surprises, but nothing bad either. If you're in the mood for a certain style of black metal, then I can see you definitely finding plenty to dig on over here. Well, I mean, nothing more to say here, really. I like the production. I think as far as where this record may fall into the cold catalog, I mean, it certainly sounds more like Swartzen than it does Till Enders. Till Enders, I thought, was a bit of a downer, and I'm glad they actually did the comeback in Swartzen, because had they kind of closed off the cold as a prospect in their careers, it would have been a shame to close it off on a record like Till Enders, which was just mediocre. This doesn't sound mediocre. We'll have to hear the whole rest of the record, but yeah, liking it. And as I said, being released right in time for Inferno. Okay, let's check out another song. We've got Corpus Diabolus. 1 week prior to the release of their next full-length album installment, Elixeria Ecstasis, black metalers Corpus Diabolus, offering listening the last new track in preview, Menstruum Congressus. Let's check it out. There is another band out of France that dabble in similarly ritualistic black metal to Corpus Diabolus, and I actually had a quick gander to see, whilst that song was playing, whether or not they don't share membership. I cannot for the life of me remember the name of the band, though. They start with an M, or it starts with an M. It's on the tip of my tongue, and I know I was reminded of them recently because I saw that they're bringing out a new album. I pledge that I will come back to you with who that is. But yeah, as soon as it started playing, I thought, do these guys have some members in common? One thing that I will say that I do know for sure is Corpus Diabolus's vocalist, Demona Creator, sounds like he may be the long-lost, distant French cousin of Mortus of Marduk. Like he has that, unhinged quality to his voice. I think it works quite well, especially when the song picks up in pace. So, yeah, pretty interesting so far. That is just all kinds of good. The Funeral Mist influence was particularly strong in that second minute that we just listened to now. And then all of a sudden, this atmospheric bit that they've just gone into now, I mean, that's taking it up several levels. So, yeah, thumbs up for me, without a shadow of a doubt. I don't know these guys' music, really. I know they've got out so far 4 other records. I've not listened to any of them, but I will definitely go back and check out their back catalog, because this sounds very, very interesting indeed. Okay, let us carry on, my friends. Hour of Penance have got a new single that debuts. I'm almost tempted to just outright boycott these guys because of some of the ridiculous nonsense that has come out of the mouths of, or the mouth of their frontman. We can get into that in a bit, but I do want to hear the song, because I want to hear if the song quality is aligned to the fucking bullshit that's come out of his mouth. Insofar as AI and whether humans are needed for entertainment or not, or whatever. I'm not going to try and quote him now. We'll read the direct quotes in a second, but let's listen to the music first. So before I comment on the song, over on Metal Injection, they quote an interview here with Hour of Penance guitarist and vocalist Paolo Pieri, who has defended the use of AI art for the band's upcoming record, Devotion, as one that is part of the non-human revolution. To quote Pieri, just as we have accepted that the Earth is not the center of the universe, we must accept that we are not needed as humans. We have to accept that maybe one day an AI will do a better job of writing music or poetry or creating art without feeling emotions. I'm sorry, but this is nothing short of silly, says the writer, blah, blah, blah. It's silly, I think, is being generous. It's the fucking stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. It comes back to what the analogy I've used many times before. You can get somebody to play a song note perfect on a piano, but without any emotion, without any feeling in what they're doing, it's just pointless. It's just a bunch of notes cobbled together. And unfortunately, as much as AI will have in the future many, incredible applications, no doubt, and watching this music video, which I assume was also done through AI, you can, if that was done by AI, that's pretty impressive. I mean, I can certainly see, the guy talks here about Souls-like games. I can certainly see the gaming industry benefiting massively from AI and from the things that AI is able to do as far as coding, etc. is concerned. But when it comes to the arts, unless you're actually doing it yourself, unless there's somebody who's truly inspired behind every single instrument, behind the writing of the music, it's just not going to, I don't think it's going to wash with people. It might do with a small, a small community of folks that, are all about the anti-human revolution and think it's somehow very cool to sound mechanical and sterile and boring. But it's not going to wash for me. And this, by the way, sounds mechanical, sterile, and boring. And in a world where there are so many fucking great bands putting out great music every single week, it's not a band worth listening to or investing any of my time in, as far as I'm concerned. All right, let's move on. A band who I have been loath to invest any of my time in is Fleshgod Apocalypse, as you all know. It says here, Italian symphonic death metal maestros Fleshgod Apocalypse are back with a brand new single, Pendulum, inspired by the tragic mountain climbing accident that occurred to their frontman and mastermind Francesco Paoli. Okay, that might make for some interesting listening. Not a fan of Fleshgod Apocalypse. I've said it many times. They're just not a band that has been able to convince me. I can see that what they do, they're particularly good at, but just they're not my tempo. That being said, we've also been on this very news rant and heard me be super impressed by Watain, Dark Funeral, bands previously that I'd written off. So there's always a first for everything, as they say. So let's hear what Pendulum sounds like. All right, the good. I think the opening riff is pretty cool. Certainly one of the best riffs I've heard them do. The production is very beefy, it's very heavy. The actual aesthetics of the music video I quite like as well. Clearly Nuclear Blast know they're onto, something, or they have a popular prospect in Fleshgod Apocalypse, or whoever has bankrolled that video, has put a reasonable amount of money into it. But there's nothing much else that's grabbing me. I think if you're a fan of Fleshgod Apocalypse, you probably like what you're hearing. But it's just, it's a bit broken up for me. You have that cool opening riff, and then you've got the stop-start thing going on with the main verse, and then you've got this bridge we just went into now with the woman singing, and it's just not, it doesn't gel for me. There's nothing about it that reaches out and punches me in the stomach. As excited as I was about Permafog earlier, I just don't feel that same level of excitement with Fleshgod Apocalypse, and I was happy to go into this with an open mind. I just think I have to concede that at least for now, they're just not a band that is ever going to appeal to me by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, so from one band who is unlikely to ever appeal to me to a band who really has never released anything below top-notch grade, news arrives that Ulcerate are finally about to release a new record. It says here, New Zealanders Ulcerate are pleased to announce the release of the follow-up to 2020's Stare Into Death and Be Still album. That record, by the way, I've spoken about it on the podcast so many times, but it is absolutely extraordinary. And if you are listening to this and for whatever reason you've not heard that album yet, you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Stop everything and go and listen to that immediately. It is absolutely extraordinary. It's a arresting end-to-end listen. It's something that you must listen to in its entirety to fully appreciate, and you must listen to it with full attention. It's not party music. You're not playing this music in the background while you and your bros, down a couple of brewskis. But those that put the time into it will understand that it is absolutely extraordinary. It says here, the album is entitled Cutting the Throat of God, which sounds suitably grim. It'll see its release on the 14th of June 2024, I assume through Deborah Morty Productions. It was recorded between September and December of 2023. Drummer Jamie St. Merat took care of recording, mixing, and all visuals. Magnus Lindberg, known for his work with Cult of Luna, Russian Circles, and Tribulation, handled the mastering. And the album's first track in preview comes out next week, so we'll listen to it on the news rant next week. The album cover looks fucking cool. I'll state once again for the public record that I forgive Jamie for big-timing me and not coming on the podcast when I invited him to. And it's probably also a nice segue into talking about some of the other stuff I'm looking forward to this week. I mentioned at the top of the show that I'll list some of my most anticipated releases of 2024. And aside from Ulcerate, I would have to put at the very, very top of that pile the upcoming Accolade record, which I would assume is going to probably be dropped later on this year. I have heard reliable rumors that it may be pretty much ready to roll. I would imagine that, probably a September, October release is what they'll be shooting for. But again, same as with Staring to Death and Be Still, Melano, the previous Accolade record, is just fucking absolutely phenomenal. I think it reached number 4 on my top 20 of that year, of 2020. Probably, upon reflection, it would be a very, very strong number 1. And I think that's just based on how much that record has grown on me over the years. But at least definitely at the very top, along with Ulcerate, in terms of most anticipated releases of 2024. I'd say aside from that, we've got the new Werewolves incoming. I happen to have had a little whiff of it, and I can tell you guys right now, it's the fucking best thing Werewolves has ever released. Hands down. If you like previous Werewolves records, brace yourself. Buy yourself a pair of brown boxer shorts because you're going to soil yourself. It is absolutely awesome. I mean, that whole crew tends to release greatness at a rate of knots, so I'm sure there'll be more stuff coming out there that that are worth us hearing. Of course, the new High on Fire, the new My Dying Bride albums, they are guaranteed winners. I'm curious to hear what the new I Am is going to sound like. I Am, of course, being Kirk Winstein, Johnny Kelly, Kenny Hickey from Typo Negative, their project. We've listened to, I think, 1, possibly 2 songs on the news rant so far. And then I'm trying to think who else has got records coming out this year. There's a new Satyricon album coming out this year. Deep Calleth Upon Deep was such shit that I actually frankly don't look forward to hearing Satyricon anymore, because I know I just need to brace myself for disappointment. I'm thinking who else is putting out something in 2024 that I'm particularly excited about. The new Selpst, of course, and I would hope that Aversio Humanitatis is going to be putting out something too. They are, of course, label mates of Selpst, actually, and Ulcerate and Accolade. And then surely the Amenta should be due to do something new. I may have to check in with those guys and see what's up. But those are some of the records that I am most excited about this year. But at the very top, without any shadow of a doubt, it is Ulcerate and it's Accolade. And I would say it's going to have to be something pretty goddamn special to disqualify from those guys from being in the top 5. I mean, I don't even have to hear the music to know they will probably be top 5 contenders of the year. All right. There is a new track out by Iron Monkey, a band I like very, very much. Of course, I had former Iron Monkey member Justin Greaves, now with Cripple Black Phoenix, and Johnny the Boy on the podcast last year. Now that Iron Monkey is back together, I'm not sure how well that sits with him, but that being said, I am keen to hear what their new music sounds like. So it says here, check out the new Iron Monkey songs in preview as part of their upcoming studio record, Spleen and Goad, which comes out on April the 5th via Relapse Records. They've got 2 here. One is called Misanthropizer, and one is called Off Switch. So I'm going to take we're not going to listen to both, so I'm going to take a quick I'm going to make a random selection, and we're going to go for Off Switch. I dig it. I'm going to have to hear more of the album before I get too excited. I am a very, very big fan of the 1998 record they put out, Our Problem. And if you go back and you listen to the song Bad Year, which is the opening track off of that record, it's fucking brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Like just crushing, knuckle-dragging, caveman, sludgecore, which, you know, kind of sounds like the direction that this is, unsurprisingly. Jim Rushby's voice sounds suitably demented. I think really everything sounds like it's basically vintage Iron Monkey. One thing that I don't think I ever played you guys on the news rant, and that is the cover. I say cover, I mean probably re-recording is maybe a fairer way to describe it, of a Iron Monkey song that the guys from Johnny the Boy actually did, and they've got Belinda doing vocals on it. So they redid the track Black Aspirin, and I think it's worth you guys hearing what it sounds like, because I think they did a fucking great job, and I think Belinda sounds, I mean, she absolutely nails it. So let me lay this on you guys for just 60 seconds or so.
This is Summer, and she is now able to generate money online through her.
I don't know who this fucking cunt is, but let me pause until this fucking idiot is done talking, and then we'll get to the song. All right, that dickhead has stopped his jibber jabber. So let's hear what the track sounds like. I said 65 seconds. I gave you 75 seconds, or 60 seconds, I think I said, and I gave you 75 seconds. But yeah, very good stuff. Go check that out. For my money, I'll definitely say, as much as I enjoyed that Iron Monkey single that we just listened to now, this is better to me. I would sooner hear more tracks that the Johnny the Boy camp re-record with Belinda on vocals. Iron Monkey tracks, I should say, that the Johnny the Boy camp re-record with Belinda on vocals. I wouldn't say I'm smitten with her. I would just say I am deeply admiring of her talents, which are ample. I just think she's fucking phenomenal. All right, Dark Tranquility have got a new single out. It says here, Dark Tranquility have just unveiled a visualizer video for their upcoming album's first single, The Last Imagination. The new long player is entitled End Time Signals, and it sees its official release on August the 16th, 2024, via Century Media Records. The band comments, "This is the time. We are very proud to finally be able to share a taste of what's coming." I don't know why they would speak like somebody from Transylvania, but anyway, The Last Imagination, they say, introduces the first flavor of many to come of our upcoming album, End Time Signals. Play it loud and let us know what you think in the comment section. As I have said on the news rant previously, Dark Tranquility are never really a band that has appealed to me much, for probably my own personal issues more than anything else. They lack the appropriate degree of severity for them to fit in my wheelhouse. I don't think the song is going to change my opinion, but they are good at what they do. There's no doubt about that. I like the riff actually on the song. I think it's it's relatively well written. Does it make me want to revisit that list of most anticipated records that I just ran through? No, absolutely not. But I can see, if you're a Dark Tranquility fan, how this might get you particularly excited, and I'm going to give them another 60 seconds.
One final set of truths. Whenever silent scream is written to the night eternal, this is the lost imagination. One final set of truths. We refuse to be nothing worthy of measure, so lost as our time is short. Well, we fled our past to embrace a now that is over before it's begun. Now this endless midnight eternal.
One other thing I'll say, actually, as a compliment to this, that I don't mind. I think the rhythm in those in the vocals during the verse, I think that's pretty cool. I can dig that. But that being said, again, I can't see myself possibly willingly wanting to listen to this, considering just how much fucking cool stuff has been coming out, is due to come out, etc., etc. Okay, next up, we've got news about Full of Hell, who are releasing a new record. Their new album is called Coagulated Bliss, and it's going to land in stores on April the 26th via closed casket activities. Produced by Kevin Bernstein at Developing Nations and mixed by Taylor Young at The Pit, mastered by the great Nick Townsend. They've got a single out called Doors to Mental Agony. It is only 1 minute 36 seconds long, so we may as well listen to the whole thing. This is what it sounds like, my friends. I think that's a top notch. I loved the opening. I thought that nasty scumbag beat, that groove at the beginning, I thought that worked really, really well. And then when the song started going into some of those kind of mathcore-y, grindcore-y elements, I thought, okay, they're going to lose me here if this carries on for too long. But they mix it up just enough to keep me interested. And the other thing that they do not do, and judging by the track lengths that I can see on that Bandcamp embedded player, it doesn't seem like they make a habit of this in any case. They don't outlast their welcome. I will be honest, I've not really spent a huge amount of time listening to Full of Hell records. I have probably tried to listen to it in the past and not necessarily gelled with it quite as much as some other folks, but I may need to go back and revisit my hypothesis. You guys let me know in the comments if there's any particular records that I should be checking out. Otherwise, I will try my luck with Weeping Choir and Garden of Burning Apparitions, but this I'm down with. I like this very much. As a matter of fact, I like it enough to award it a top notch. The very first of the news rant this week. So yeah, kudos to Full of Hell. Great work. Okay, next up, Ard reveal Heffenfelth track. It says, as part of their forthcoming studio release, Untouched by Fire, due out on April the 26th via Prophecy Productions, Art, is it Art or R-O? Who knows? Offering listening another new song in advance called Heffenfelth. Let's give it a listen. Shit needs to get some fucking direction, so I'm going to jump ahead by 3 minutes, and let's hear if we're let's hear if we're down to business yet. Apparently not, unless that business is being a sniveling weasel. So that is a definite thumbs down. Orbit Culture are presenting a brand new visualizer video. Orbit Culture, of course, will also be at Inferno. While they have just started their mostly sold-out European headline tour, this article reads, the Swedes, Orbit Culture, put out a brand new visualizer video for the song called The Upheaval. The latter appears on their recently released EP, The Forgotten. I have not listened to that yet. I have a very good mate, a bro, if you will, who's a huge fan of Orbit Culture and keeps on insisting that I check them out. So I'm going to kill two birds with one stone, and let's give this song 60 seconds. Not bad. There's a very strong Lamb of God influence there. I don't know if I'm the only one hearing it. I doubt very much that I would be. but there's definitely a pretty strong Lamb of God influence in there. And I say it's kind of like Lamb of God combined with Scandinavian sensibilities. You know, you hear some of that keyboard thrown in there, you know, maybe some of that kind of mid-90s extreme music. We spoke a couple of weeks ago about the Voldemar Saricha records, maybe some of that vibe thrown in there. But I think it's pretty cool. It sounds to me, and I don't have my finger on the pulse of what's popular with the kids. It sounds to me like this band is pretty popular. You know, and maybe I'm just falling for the PR hype there, you know, talking about their mostly sold out European headline tour. But if they were to be particularly popular, it wouldn't surprise me, because it sounds like, you know, they have some of that Lamb of God energy going on. And by the way, as a side note, I had yet another person ask me why I dislike Randy Blythe, and I answered very simply, the guy just strikes me as being massively self-important, and a far cry from the fucking Neanderthal caveman lunatic that, you know, I first saw on stage when I saw Lamb of God the first time, which was back in, I think, 2002 or 2003. Actually, 2003, I know that for sure. You know, on that particular occasion, the guy was just a fucking savage, and he was a savage on subsequent records since. But in recent years, you know, age has just turned the guy into a bit of a joke, to be honest. He runs his mouth about an awful lot of shit he knows nothing about. He always seems. He seems like there's a pregnant pause before he gives his opinion on anything, because we all have to stand in reverence at the fact that he's about to speak. He just doesn't strike me as my kind of dude. It's as simple as that. Anyway, let's get back to listening to Orbit Culture. I could hear a little bit of Testament going on there as well. That clean vocal part, I mean, that sounded like somebody was doing their level best to emulate Chuck Billy. And again, not hating it. You guys know my thoughts on Chuck Billy. You know, as far as I'm concerned, one of the very greatest of the great. Spoke about it just on this episode with, what's his name? Joakim. And by the way, I hope you guys noticed I pronounced his name correctly. So I did joke with him before we started recording, and I did say I'd been talking about quoting the Psycho Realm song and starting the episode by saying, "Joakim, so good to see you again." All right, next headline: Prong launch a cover for the Rush song "Working Man." We'll listen to this one, and then we'll head over to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music to see what keen insights they have to share this week. But, you know, you guys know my thoughts on Prong. Like the band, not necessarily been blown away by their recent output. That being said, let's hear what this cover sounds like.
Well, I get up at 7, yeah, and I go to work at 9. Got no time for living, yeah, I'm working all the time. It seems to me I can
Yeah, I like it. It's nothing spectacular. I think the cover that they did of Band in DC was probably a little bit better. The Fugazi cover that they did as well. They had that covers record that they put out a couple of years ago. They had the Fugazi cover on there as well. I thought that was better than this, but I like it. I'm not hating it at all. I think it's been incredibly healthy for Tommy Victor to get out from the influence and shadow of that fucking simpleton Al Jorgensen. And like I said, it pains me to say the guy's a simpleton because once upon a time I was absolutely, like down for the cause as far as Ministry was concerned. They were one of my favorite bands, if not my favorite band, for a lengthy period of time. But that guy just continues to stain his legacy and effectively sound like a fucking half-baked cover of a Ministry band repeating quotes from Morning Joe and Rachel Maddow. And I suspect it'll get significantly worse on the next record because I have a pretty good idea what's going to happen at the next US election. All right, we head over to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music, Blabbermouth. Let's see what news they've got here. Judas Priest's Rob Halford says that the new set that they're going to be playing in support of Invincible Shield is absolutely lethal. I saw a lot of people saying an awful lot of very good things about the new album on the socials. Slipknot is rehearsing with a mystery new drummer now. Eloy Casagrande, as we all know, quit on his bandmates in Sepultura just a couple of days before they were due to go off on this anniversary tour, this farewell tour of theirs. Actually, no, fuck anniversary. Farewell tour. Sorry, I misspoke there. It seems reasonably obvious that he may have gone to join Slipknot. And like I said last week, Slipknot, slip shit. I totally get why he's done it. He's probably going to be able to earn a reasonable amount of money from being in that band. But 16-year-old me will forever say, why? Why did you join that garbage? Slash explains how he got Brian Johnson to appear on his upcoming blues album. There's actually a track that I heard I actually heard the Brian Johnson Slash track, and I have to say, it's pretty fucking good. When I heard blues, and Slash, I was like, this is just going to be some indulgent nonsense. But the song is actually pretty goddamn good, and we're going to give it a quick listen. I'm not going to bother with going through the article, but brace yourself, of course. If you're listening to this podcast because all you listen to day in and day out is the most grim of black metal and death metal, this is not going to be the song for you. But I thought it was pretty interesting. So let's give it a whirl. I'm not going to inflict you guys with too much of that, but hopefully, some folks agree with me. I think the real star of that song is Brian Johnson. He sounds fucking fantastic. That's probably the best I've heard him sound in years. He can, the kind of screechier vocals that he does for AC/DC, he can kind of still pull those off in studio, live. He just doesn't sound the same anymore, and I understand why. I mean, the guy is fucking ancient. But this, kind of blues style singing certainly seems to be far more in his current day wheelhouse. I'm not even a big fan of blues, but that just caught me by surprise. I just enjoyed it. Sometimes it's just about timing when you hear a song that speaks to your heart. I wouldn't go as far as to say it spoke to my heart, but like I said, I enjoyed it. Bill Steer, Carcass is not working on any new music at the moment. Who gives a fuck? Arch Enemies, Alyssa White-Glass named as an executive producer of I Could Never Go Vegan documentary. Rob Alford, we're proud of everything that's related to the glorious life that Judas Priest has had. All right, this one could be a nice, at least an interesting one, a curious oddity to close off the news rant for this week. Former Fear Factory singer Burton C. Bell releases his debut solo single, Anti-Droid. It certainly seems from this photo like the years have caught up to him, or at the very least, after some of the criminally corrupt contracts that he signed at the hands of old Dino from Fear Factory. Maybe he just doesn't have enough money for food anymore. But anyway, it says here, former Fear Factory frontman Burton C. Bell has released his debut solo single, Anti-Droid. Like his previous work, which continually explored themes of dystopian angst, identity, technology gone wrong, and resilience, the new track arrives with a potent message. I severed the machine that no longer served me. He screams in the moody, synth-heavy, sci-fi metal missive. It's a defiant statement delivered with a confident bombast. Bell is back on the offensive. Anyway, I'm not going to suffer through any more of that fucking word salad, but I am very curious to hear what the song sounds like. I saw a couple of folks commenting on this, possibly on We Are the Pit, that Burton was apparently trying to stick it to old Dino. But we're going to find out right now whether or not that is indeed the case. Right, I'll tell you what, that is way more interesting than anything Fear Factory has put out for their last several albums, especially that last piece of shit that they released. Yeah, it's moody, it's atmospheric. I think Burton actually sounds pretty decent. I like the heavy electronics. I wouldn't necessarily say he's sticking it to Fear Factory with a song. He's carrying on with some of his own lyrical themes. I frankly couldn't give a fuck whether he was sticking it to Fear Factory or not. The what's important is the output, and the output's very cool. I'm down with this for sure. I would be very, very curious to hear whether he can translate this into a full-length record that's interesting and compelling throughout. But first 90 seconds is getting a thumbs up from me for sure.
I would rather be damned than a slave to the factory. Flesh out fantasy, the weight of my salvation. Never be destroyed by your own creation. Anti-Droid. 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 Anti-Droid.
I don't know if I'm enjoying this because I was expecting it to basically sound like Fear Factory with different musicians, but yeah, like I said, I am absolutely down with that. Key thing is going to be, can he turn it into a full-length record that is enjoyable from start to finish? Because it's one thing to put out a song like that, but that's a specific style. You kind of, if you're going to do a record like that, in my view, it needs to be something that is quite cinematic. It has different, there needs to be, real kind of progression and variation in the way the songs are constructed. I think the band that did that absolutely best was Absent in Body. And I've spoken about or sung their praises on this podcast many, many, many times before. I am extremely pleased to have seen that apparently they are talking now about doing more music. There was stuff that they posted on Instagram not too long ago where they said, can't wait to share with you guys what comes next. Clearly, Scott Kelly won't be part of it. But, again, as anyone with fucking half a brain should probably have registered by now, Scott Kelly was not the only dude to contribute to what made that band's debut record just a masterpiece. So, I'm very, very excited to hear what they do next. Less excited, though, to let you guys know that this is the news rant wrapped up for this week. Thank you very much for sticking around until the very end of the episode. I will be back next week, guest to be announced. I have got a big week when it comes to recording interviews. There are 2 guests. I'll confirm them on the socials once those interviews are in the bank. But I think that you guys are going to be very pleased when you find out who they are. So fingers crossed it actually happens. Let's get over that hurdle first and foremost. But if it happens, you'll know it is. And I will be back next week to share the first of those 2 recordings with you. As I said when I started the news rant, there really is only one way to close out this podcast. Once again, my condolences to Blake Harrison, to his loved ones, to his family and his friends, to his former bandmates. We are going to close out with a song by Pig Destroyer. And I would like to say to every single member of the Legion, whatever it is that you're doing, wherever it is that you are, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.
Message.